Touch.
Taste.
Look.
Smell. Tree.
Bird. Bell. Touch.
Taste.
Look.
Smell.
Tree.
Fish.
Bird.
Bell.
So do as the poet says and listen.
And listen.
And listen.
And lesson.
And listen.
And listen.
Okay. Hello everyone, most of you the second time this evening. Welcome back to the Arc. Welcome to the 34th edition of Glasgow Doors Open Days, coordinated since 1990 by Glasgow Building Preservation Trust. I'm Stephen Sheriff. I am the Events and Development Coordinator at Glasgow Building Preservation Trust. The festival happens in every region in Scotland, coordinated by the Scottish Star Trust, so I encourage you to look up the Doors Open Days website and find out what's on in the other areas around you. We're very grateful to the University of Glasgow for hosting us here in this amazing building, and I'd like to say a really big thank you to Cassie Dillon and Zara Gladman for all their help in helping put the programme together. The Arc is the home of collaborative research at the University of Glasgow and works to bring researchers, partners and ideas together from across the campus, the city and beyond. The ground floor where we are now is open to the public year-round and hosts a wide range of events and projects inspired by the university's research. And there's a QR code on the door as you, if you want to find out more about what's happening in the building throughout the year. It's there. This weekend, the Arc is going to host Explorathon, which is a mini festival showcasing some of the amazing research that happens in. We have a really huge programme this year. There's about 250 events in the programme, 270 if you include all the digital events. So if the event you were hoping to get to is fully booked, please do go onto the website, look for that no booking necessary category or the in-person events category. There's loads of events there where you don't need a booking, so please don't be discouraged. I'd like to say a really huge thank you to our funders, to Glasgow City Council and to Glasgow City Heritage Trust, to our sponsor Denton's, and to all of our sponsors who make this event possible and keep it free. Thank you to our amazing volunteers who welcomed you today, without whom the festival would not be possible. To Ev, our tech manager, helping us make sure everything goes smoothly. If you feel like making a donation to help us keep the festival free, you can do so by texting Doors Open to 785. Text costs £5 plus one standard rate message. Those details are on the screen behind me. You can also make a cash donation by using the kits that the volunteers have got on the way. If you'd like to make a donation using a card, you can also do that. Our volunteers will be happy to help. I really hope you enjoy this event this evening. We want to know what you think of the festival and help us make it better next year. We have a flyer where there's a QR code in front that will take you to the homepage of our website, where is hosted a link to the festival survey. Tell us what you think and be in with a chance of winning a £100 voucher for a Glasgow local business of your choice. And the unlikely event of a fire alarm, please proceed through the doors behind you, across the foyer, and the muster point is in the main concourse. Okay, on to tonight's event. I'm very pleased to introduce Tom Knuckles from Local Home Retrofit, CIC. Before moving to Scotland in 2019, Tom worked in community energy in Sydney. He's co-founder of Local Home Retrofit CIC, which he started with Chris Carris in 2021. Local Home is a not-for-profit community retrofit cooperative based in Glasgow. It was set up to address the challenges of home retrofit and make better retrofit more accessible to more people in Glasgow. Tom Knuckles, everybody.
Thank you, Stephen. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along on a bit of a rainy evening. Just make sure these works and I know how everything can go. Thank you, Doors Open Days Festival, for the opportunity. So, Glasgow Building Preservation Trust, thank you very much. We're participating with a number of events, and it's great exposure for us. And being able to show people buildings and how they actually work is going to be an ongoing feature of what we do. We'll talk more about that throughout this presentation. So I'm going to talk to you today about the importance of making our buildings fit for the future, low carbon, healthy, comfortable, why that's such an important thing. What it actually means when we use the jargonistic term retrofit, what are the barriers that are preventing us from moving forward in retrofit, and what we think some of the solutions might be, before finally talking about what you can do. We're going to leave plenty of time for a bit of a Q&A, and in fact I think I'm planning on doing a reverse Q&A. Might be more me asking you questions and sort of mix things up that way. But a bit about me. I'm Australian, and I'm from Sydney. And my story is that back in 2013, I was working in one of those high-rise buildings you see in that photo there. I was working for a big international law firm. And this law firm had offices in places like Brazil, Texas, South Africa. They were big in mineral extraction, and particularly big in fossil fuels. I'm not a lawyer, and I wasn't doing that bad work, but it became increasingly apparent to me that I was working for the bad guys. And without going into all the details, I made a decision that I couldn't be involved in a company that was doing that anymore, fracking, finding new and inventive ways of getting more and more stuff to burn in our atmosphere. So I started a new career. And the new career was community energy. And I threw myself into that with huge energy and enthusiasm. One of the things I did is I volunteered for a group in Sydney. And what we did is we put solar panels on the roof of craft breweries, and we had a lot of fun having launch parties at craft breweries. But the main thing I did is I joined an incredible small workers' cooperative called Community Power Agency. And the main thing I was doing there was supporting communities across Australia and developing energy projects. Mostly that's solar in Australia, you won't be surprised to hear. And then in 2019, I moved to Scotland because my wife is Scottish. And I was really fortunate to get a new job in the same field, working for a company called Energy for All. And I continued to help communities developing energy projects. So there's a photo of Glasgow Community Energy celebrating putting solar panels on one of the schools in Glasgow, and I helped them with their share offer. And underpinning all of that work, and I consider that this new thing that I'm doing with Local Home Retrofit is a continuation of this community energy piece, is this idea that we need to make sure that the transition to low carbon, to clean energy, is both fast and fair. And these two ideas feed into each other. I'll just explain that briefly because it's going to come up throughout the presentation a couple of places. First of all, as we all know, the sooner we act on climate change, the worse the impacts will be. But it's also true that the people who are least responsible for climate are the ones that are going to feel the impacts the worst. So the slower we act, the more unfair it will be. We have to act fast, otherwise it's going to be grossly unfair for the more vulnerable people who didn't contribute to the problem in the first place. But it also works the other way. Unless the transition to clean energy is fair and seem to be fair, people are far too likely to push back and start using the power of veto that they have. Political power, putting obstacles in the way, and that can slow down the transition. And that's why I've devoted myself to putting communities in the driving seat of the transition to clean energy. So, this is the Loco Home team today. We're a new organisation. There's 4 of us now. So on the left-hand side there's Chris, and we co-founded Loco Home in 2021. And nowadays we've got Jan and Carmen. Carmen's at the back of the room today. She's going to take a couple of photos, just the back of people's heads. If you really don't want to have the back of your head photo taken, put your hand up. But the reason we founded Loco Home was because we wanted to tackle one of the major contributors to climate change, which is emissions coming from our homes. We have a major problem on our hands. The climate emergency is unfolding right in front of us. We're now feeling the effects of climate change more and more every day. We haven't listened to the experts, and we haven't acted fast enough. So we're going to need to accelerate, and we're going to need to start preparing for the impacts of climate change as it arrives. It's not enough just to decarbonise, we now need to start making ourselves more resilient as well. We need to act, in other words, in a variety of ways. And in Glasgow, incredibly, 34%, or around about a third, of our direct carbon emissions comes from our homes. And it's that statistic that is why Loco Home exists. We're here to drive that number as close to zero as we possibly can. And the reason why our homes are emitting so much carbon is because they're poorly maintained. They're some of the most inefficient housing stock in Europe, some say the world. That means they're uncomfortable, unhealthy, and they're really expensive to operate. Our homes are in a really poor state. Yet, new buildings are not the solution. We've got old buildings, they're inefficient and in a poor state of repair, but a much touted sort of factoid that you hear is that 80% of the homes that will exist in 2050 have already been built today. So that means we can't build our way out of this problem. We certainly can't demolish and build our way out of this problem. The only way forward is to retrofit. The only way forward is to make our homes more energy efficient. So, what is retrofit? Well, let's unpack the word. It's a combination of 2 words, to retrospectively fit something. So, you have a ship, let's say it's a Navy ship, and it was built some years ago, and it no longer has the most up-to-date technology. You bring it into the dock, and you retrospectively fit the new technology to bring it up to spec. That's what retrofit means, but we're not talking about ships, we're talking about homes. So retrofit means fitting new energy efficiency measures, including renewable energy heating, into existing buildings. Insulation, ventilation systems, and zero or low carbon heating like heat pumps. And the great news is that when we do this, we bring a whole lot of benefits. So we make our homes a lot more comfortable, healthier environments, much lower bills, hopefully, with a lower impact, and that includes a lower carbon footprint. It's not like we haven't done plenty of work already to make our homes more energy efficient. We've actually been doing this for decades. But what we've been doing so far has only got us to a certain point, and we have to go further with a new approach. So think about the fact that we've transitioned from single glazing to double glazing, that most homes actually do have loft insulation. The way we got there is with this single measures approach. What we've effectively said is, let's leave it to the market, let's incentivize the market and bring in new regulations to encourage people to do double glazing, to encourage people to do loft insulation. And it's kind of worked, but it has a few problems. Those problems are that there's a gap between what the promised improvements would be and what you actually get. There's a bunch of risks as well. So if you have someone coming in and looking at your windows and they're going to make your place a whole lot more airtight, for example, have they given some consideration to how many people are living in that home? Is moisture going to build up? Well, they don't care about that. What they care about is selling you windows, installing them, and moving on to the next customer to do windows on. And so we've seen a litany of bad retrofit outcomes more recently, and all of that has resulted in a major review of the way we're doing retrofit. And the industry best practice now is to do a whole building approach. So not single measures, but to actually look at the needs of the whole building, speak to the occupants and what they're hoping to achieve with the building, and have a holistic plan. So there's actually a standard for retrofit. It's a really exciting topic. I'm not going to talk much about it to disappoint you. It's called PAS 2035. And really what that's all about is managing the risks associated with retrofit and ensuring that we are taking a whole building approach. So when we say retrofit, and then what our organisation does is we take a whole building approach to retrofit. And I'm going to break it down a little bit more just into the major component activities or parts of what retrofit involves. These aren't necessarily in order, but it's just an explanation of the four major elements. First of all, airtightness. Our homes are very drafty and it makes us uncomfortable. Typical home will lose about 1/3 of its heat from uncontrolled ventilation, from drafts. And you particularly feel that on a windy day, on a cold windy day, because when it's windy you get more air flowing through your house and more loss of heat. That picture shows a specially trained thermographer doing an air tightness test. What he's actually done is he's got a blower door on the front door which is sucking all the air out of the house. And that means, because it's low pressure, all the air tries to come in through all the drafts. And he's then got like a miniature version of a smoke machine you'd see in a disco or something. And he's going around, and it's amazing. You can see like streaming underneath the windowsill there, right onto that person's sofa. It's in their living room. Is a huge draft. So they would have been sitting in the sofa, feeling cold and jacking up the temperature of the heating as a result. So it's a really simple thing to fix that. You just need to get in there and do some draft proofing. But for us, air tightness is all about removing uncontrolled ventilation and making your house as closed, sealed, airtight as possible, which naturally leads us to ventilation. We all need to breathe, and if we're living in airtight cubes, it's not going to be great if there's not some sort of ventilation. Moisture will build up, will sort of suffocate, and all sorts of unintended things will happen, like mold will build up. So we need to move from uncontrolled ventilation to controlled ventilation. So it's a natural pairing with the air tightness. Once you've done enough air tightness, you need to introduce controlled ventilation to make sure the building has the right amount of fresh air. Moisture is being adequately controlled. And of course, insulation. We all kind of know what insulation means. It's about putting nice, fluffy material above our living spaces, in our lofts, under our floors. But when we talk about insulation, we're going to need to go further than we've ever gone before. Think about how a thermos operates. Your thermos to keep your hot drinks is not a bit of insulation on the top of it and the sides don't have insulation. It's a complete sealed unit. And unless our homes are completely sealed with insulation all the way around, without gaps, without thermal bridges, we're not going to be able to retain the heat in our homes to the level that we need to be able to retain them. And why is all of this important? And it's because we need to put in renewable heating. And for most homes in Scotland, most homes in the UK, that means moving on to electrical heating systems, but not direct electrical heating systems, heat pumps. Heat pumps that take 1 unit of electrical energy and through thermodynamics and compression of gases, they're able to convert that 1 unit of electrical energy into 3, or sometimes 5 units of heat energy. This is really important because if we were to try and directly heat all our homes with electricity, we would rapidly run out with electricity on the grid. There's not enough clean energy out there, and we're unlikely to be able to build enough clean energy to heat all of our homes with low carbon electric energy. The heat pumps are part of the future. They have to be, and the good news is, despite what you've heard, they do, can, and they're proven to work, even in the buildings we find typically in Glasgow. So that's what retrofit's about. The way I like to think of it, it's about making your home fit for the future. Resilient, so well maintained, able to stand up to more extreme weather, that's the first thing, but also is going to be low carbon, low cost to run, comfortable and healthy. That's what we're talking about. So if it's so wonderful, what's standing in our way? What are the barriers to retrofit? Well, as it says on this slide, retrofit is expensive, it's complicated, it's risky, and it's difficult to find people to do the work. That's just the truth of the matter. That's really what we're here for. We're here to try and break down those barriers and make it easy for everybody. There's also a bunch of less than ideal operators in this marketplace. So people start to look for ways of making their homes more energy efficient, and they're getting scammed, ripped off, or just sold inappropriate measures. What's hard to see in this is an image of someone's loft where they've had huge amounts of bats installed just above the rafters, but also spray foam insulation sprayed everywhere. And it's just very likely to be causing all sorts of problems, including rotting timbers in their roof timbers. So we need to be really careful about putting the right measures in the right buildings, leaving it to those insulated cowboys. Not all insulation people are cowboys, that's not what I'm saying. But leaving it to them alone is going to be a big mistake. So we need to be able to navigate that. It's a really tricky space to navigate as an individual household. How do you know that you're making the right decision? And from a sort of market development perspective, one of the key things that we think is an issue, and this is a little extract from the Scottish Government's policy paper, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but what it says is, in order to develop the supply chain, well, we have a problem to decarbonise our buildings. On the one hand, there's a clear lack of demand for green heat products and services. So it's a barrier to growth. There's not enough households saying they want these low carbon green heat products. And then we haven't manipulated this, by the way. It is literally the next paragraph. It doesn't acknowledge it itself. It says, conversely, key stakeholders in the demand side of the market have cited a lack of supply chain. So we've simultaneously a lack of demand, a lack of households, and we've got a lack of supplies. So those few households who are standing up saying they want to do retrofit to make their homes fit for the future, there's no supplies for them. So how are we going to solve that problem? Key barrier that we're trying to resolve. And another way of looking at the market is that we're just at a very early stage. The people who are tackling this in their homes right now are people who are really quite already engaged and understand what's going on. They're early innovators. They're a tiny minority, and we need to move retrofit from being a niche activity undertaken by people in the know that are highly motivated to just an everyday thing that's happening in homes all over Glasgow. They're part of the normal conversation. We need to move over to that majority and the majority. Final thing that I'm going to say on the barriers, which is it's really important that we don't have communities exercising their power of veto. It feels to me that retrofit is one of those areas that could easily become at the front line of what you might call the culture wars. We're already seeing heat pumps coming under attack and so much misinformation about heat pumps. My big concern is that unless we can really carefully explain what retrofit is all about, why it's overwhelmingly positive, not just for people in their homes, but also for the local economy. Unless we can explain that, we're leaving ourselves open to the risk that people are going to start to portray this as being a negative thing, when actually it's a really positive thing. So how do we avoid that power of veto? In other words, we need shared action. So the solution is a community intermediary. Now, we didn't invent this idea of a community intermediary. We're just treading where other people have already gone. In particular, and on the bottom of this slide, we're referencing Carbon Co-op and People Power Retrofit in Manchester. And what we're saying is that if we leave this to government and to big business, first of all, they're not even going to act. The government is not going to force people to make their homes more carbon efficient because it's going to be a guaranteed vote loser. This is the way things often work. They're not going to do that unless there's public support. So our job is to demonstrate that it's possible and that it's popular. We need to give the policymakers confidence, in other words. So really, we need someone local who's not a big out-of-town corporate, not the government looking down on the community saying, you must do this. We need a local community-based organisation to get into the community and have honest conversations about what this all means, like what we're doing here today, and how we're going to navigate this space. We need to insert place-based intermediation. We need to build bridges and links between the supply chain and the demand side. We need to give people confidence that there will be suppliers. We need the suppliers to be confident there will be customers. So part of what we're doing is bringing those customers together so we can demonstrate that demand, but also inviting the supply chain into the conversation as well. And on the homeowner side, that means like lots of this sort of stuff, telling stories about people who started to make that journey. People have really positive stories, even if they've only taken a small step in that direction. One of the first things we do as an organisation is we go in and do an assessment and come up with a plan for that home. So many people are just paralysed. They don't know what to do. They don't know what this next step is, and they're really worried that they're going to make the wrong step. So we demystify that. We create a really clear pathway, and this is the sort of testimony that we're getting. Just making it very easy for people to know what to do. And on the supply side as well, we're having conversations with people about the opportunity that exists in retrofit. So bringing people who perhaps trained in more traditional, mainstream materials into some of these newer, deeper, low-carbon retrofit materials, for example. Having conversations with suppliers about what looks like good work and what doesn't look like good work. And as I said before, building links and bridges between those two groups. We're doing lots of workshops and webinars, so lots of sharing information from the really simple, on the left there, how do we improve our boiler efficiency just by getting the controls right, through to the much more esoteric and complicated, like a sort of piece of work that we're commissioning some architects to look at the risk of doing insulation behind lath and plaster in traditional buildings. We're sharing this information as widely as possible so that people understand what this is all about, demystifying it, bringing this information into light, because without the information, people are going to really struggle to know what to do. But we think it's also like a social challenge. We think it's less of a technical challenge and much more of a social challenge. We're a club, we're a co-op, we're owned and controlled by our members. We hold regular members meetings. So this photo is of a workshop we were holding at our members recently, not too long ago, talking about the challenges that people are facing in their homes. We held another one recently about how we can find trusted suppliers. And we have a members forum, so when you become a member of Loco Home, there's this discussion forum where you can meet people and share your story, listen to other people's stories and things that have gone right and things that haven't gone so right. So sharing information And yeah, just generally making a platform for ourselves where people can connect with each other. So what we've got there on the left is a bunch of DIYers, people who are wanting to do retrofit themselves, and they're in the house of someone who's doing some pretty advanced work. You can actually see the orange shirt of Gemma. She's involved as well. She's been doing some plastering in this guy's house. We do walking tours, so we're doing a walking tour as part of Doors Open Day. Doors Open Days. We're participating in a walking tour that Under One Roof we're organising, and it's the third time we're doing that as part of Doors Open. And lots of opportunities to share information and connect with each other. The main thing that we do as the first step, I mentioned this earlier, is we do a whole house plan, and that's really important for unlocking people who are stuck and making it very clear that if you follow these steps, you're not going to be regretful later, and it's going to be a low-risk option for you. Lots of case studies, and we want to do a lot more open houses. We're really excited to participate in Doors Open Days because it's an opportunity for us to get out there and do more of what we want to do anyway. So the main event, which we're doing on Sunday, is an open house. One of our members has generously offered to invite people into her home, and it's a sandstone terraced home on the south side of Glasgow. She's done a renovation, they've done a renovation, and installed a heat pump. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this house, and then I'll be coming to the end of the talk and we'll have some discussion. So the couple involved in this house, it was newly purchased, and at the time they purchased it, it was in a very poor state of repair. So they knew that there was major renovations required, and they knew that that was going to be very disruptive work. So you can see in the photo there that we've got things like installing a beam to create a more open plan setting in the house. And we've got elements of doors and floors all being ripped apart. I mean, the house has been pulled apart. Extremely disruptive work. As I mentioned, it was in a very poor state of repair, so it was being brought up to maintenance specification, which is excellent. They've done things like internal wall insulation, underfloor insulation, underfloor heating, and they've installed a heat pump. Now, this wasn't without challenges. But they did successfully complete this work, and they're now reaping the benefits of a new home that's fit for the future, and they have a heat pump and it's working. And to be honest, we didn't actually help them very much with this work. We found out about them pretty much after they'd finished the job. And they became a member of Loco Home because they wanted other people to be able to learn from what had worked from them, share their experience, and encourage other people to do the same as them. The key lessons to learn from this house is that heat pumps do work in traditional older buildings. You can go and see one, and you can speak to the owners about their experience, what impact it's had on their lives, and what it's built. The second thing is that at the moment of purchase and at the moment of doing major renovation, these are ideal times to do retrofit, which is actually quite a disruptive process. So if you're going to be doing that disruption anyway, if you haven't moved in, or if you're going to be doing major renovations, think about doing energy-related work as a part of that. So as I mentioned, this is a Doors Open Days event. Here you can see changing a door, internal wall insulation, stonework, and the heat pump that's been installed where the door used to be. So give you an idea of the type of work. Unfortunately, if anybody in this room wants to go to that and you're not already booked in, it's sold out. We're more than 10 times oversubscribed on this event now. So the clear message that we're getting is that people want to see what's possible, and we're going to be looking for opportunities to do more open houses in this house and other houses, hopefully. Pretty much there. That's my final slide. What can you do? Well, there's many things you can do, but the best thing you could probably do if you want to take a journey towards retrofit for your home is to become a member. If you want to participate in in an open house that we're going to be offering in the future, we've got nothing currently planned, but we do want to do more of them. You could also join our mailing list, and you'll find ways of doing it on our website. And if you want to get more hands-on and you actually want to really have a plan for how you're going to retrofit your home, we can do that assessment service for you. That's the end of the slides, and I think I've finished as planned about 30 minutes. So we've got 20 minutes or so where we can do Q&A, and I'm going to do this in two parts. I'm going to do a question and answer. So I'm going to ask some questions, and you're all going to give me some answers. Does this sound good? Okay, so the first one is, I'll warm you up a little bit. I won't ask you to actually use your voices to begin with. And who thinks it would be helpful to see a home that already had a heat pump? Excellent. Most people in the room? What else would you like to see with an open doors retrofit? Yeah? We'll do some rapid fire. Excellent.
Save your resources, costs, so and to completely also flats. So it's probably since the part of the interest in mostly practicalities and the size of the slate and sort of area if you've got 100 flats, school in terms of height.
Yeah, how to actually make it happen. Anybody else? No, I'm not asking the questions. I'm happy to just receive your answers, not necessarily respond.
Something to break down the actual costs associated with doing the work, whether you're doing it yourself or looking at costing a paid person to carry out the toxic insulation works.
Yeah, an understanding of the cost, in other words. Yeah. Okay.
With the techniques, if there's anything that you can do in the main stairways and stuff, that you might not be able to get each place done, but it would be good to be able to be done in the main stairway and the roof and stuff.
Yeah, what's the communal work? And it's not, just out of curiosity, who lives in a tenement? Approaching half the room. Okay.
How you would insulate traditional multi-plastered wall?
Yes. Yeah. So that more technical webinar I mentioned is the most recent one we did. It was exactly addressing that question. So get onto our website and we'll be doing part 2 of that soon. Yeah. Another one over here.
This actually links to the gentleman there, Northern Plaster and a coom ceiling. You mentioned the likes of people having cowboys in and regret it. I think we could also possibly make dangerous mistakes ourselves. I was just looking at lacking some microfilm from a loft down, and I think, well, that's a brilliant idea, but there's possibly a bag of microfilm, am I making a run for my own back?
What's the right thing to do if I'm doing it myself? How do I avoid making mistakes? Yeah. This is great, by the way. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, there's social housing associations, where they're at as a strategy for some vast amount of tenants, tenants, and also modern.
Okay. So I'm going to do this really securely because I'm really interested. Both the team we're really interested to learn more about what questions people have, and then at the end, my final question is: if you have any questions, so I'm going to turn the Q&A around. I think we'll be able to answer that question, by the way. We'll bring that back up with you. Yeah. Anybody else want to answer that question? It's
Just the strategies, how to approach different phases of seeing what one can do DIY. Yeah. Where to begin?
yeah, where to begin? Right. I think this is a bit thematically in the space of this question, which is thinking about your own situation. What might prevent you, each one of you, from making your home fit for the future, resilient, warm, comfortable, healthy, driving, and zero carbon? What do you think are the things that are in the way that are going to make life difficult for you? Cost, I hear. Yeah. Anybody agree with that one? Yeah. Planning, great. Yeah. The things that I've told you tonight, like disruption. Yeah, knowing that you're doing the right thing, that you've got the right solution and you're not making mistakes that you might regret later. Sorry, I just put a lot of words in your mouth. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, so if you're in a communal setting, then you need to have agreements. Yeah. So it's one of the reasons why I think this is much more a social problem than a technical problem. The big challenge, like we kind of know what to do to retrofit houses. There are some minor technical issues unresolved, such as the lack of plaster question. But really, we can't do much technically. But when we think about tenements and communal settings, the big challenge is actually how do we socially solve that problem? How do we get people to agree to this communally? Yeah. Anybody else? What barriers do you think you might have in your way? Okay, thank you. Do some rapid fire hands up stuff. Hands up after today's talk, you think we, as a city, nation, whatever, should be doing more to retrofit our homes. Keep your hand up if you think you're going to take a step yourself. Right? Fell for that trick, that was easy. Alright, hands down everyone. Hands up if you're going to become a member. Good work, alright, hands down. And hands up if you now plan on getting a home assessment, perhaps from a local home retrofit, because you want to plan for the future. Fabulous. Final one from me. Who wants to join our mailing list? Okay, my trusty assistant Carmen is going to hand around mailing this sign-up form. So that's great. All right, turn the questions around. Who has questions that they think that I might be able to answer now? I need to explain that I am not a technical expert in retrofit. My skills lie in organising communities and running social enterprise businesses. I know a little bit, but I will very quickly reach some limits on what I'm able to answer from a technical standpoint. With that in mind, who's got some questions?
I just wanted to ask the Scottish government, are they offering enough investment for this? Or is this dependent on the government?
I think it's probably a question of both. To be fair, most of the Scottish government's funding comes from a grant from the UK government. But the Scottish government is working very hard to make it easy for households by giving them things like access to grants, loans, and advice to make it as easy as possible. So the flagship program for this is Home Energy Scotland, and it's not bad. And when you get onto Home Energy Scotland, you have options for receiving some grant funding, or maybe a low interest loan to fund certain retrofit measures. But the problem with this is it's a little bit difficult to navigate. And so we can potentially give you some pointers. We can't actually advise you on how to do that because it's a bit like a financial product. There's an emerging body of knowledge within local home of people who have been navigating that, and we're starting to understand that program a lot ourselves. And we're also in ever increasing conversation with Home Energy Scotland about how we can improve the situation. Do you think that answered your question adequately, or is there more? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just wondered what thoughts you had and what capacity we can build in Glasgow institutionally. So an example that frustrated me a few years ago was hundreds of elderly, mostly elderly people signed up for the Green Deal installation and solar panels that were funded by a company called Helms. And it basically meant that they had overcladding put on the post-war Swedish timber-built houses without building warrants, thus avoiding home insurance. And the company that installed the solar panels took the feed-in tariff and then collapsed and liquidated the company that installed all the stuff and then took the feed-in tariffs offshore, and as they are still basically parasitically taking money from these houses. And it was only because of the goodwill of some construction companies in Glasgow and the council and City Building that we were able to get a kind of collective building loan retrospectively agreed to approve the works. But anyway, it was a mess. But the thing that annoyed me was the city itself had put together a sort of one-stop shop for retrofit with the Green Deal maybe 20 years ago. We could have actually had a mass retrofit project and solar panel installation program that would have generated probably tens if not hundreds of millions of pounds in annual revenues for the city. So there's more we could be doing as a city to sort of create some sort of municipal entity that could supercharge all of this.
Yeah, so like the question is effectively what can we be doing institutionally to move things forward? And thanks for fleshing that out. Because that question alone didn't make much sense the way you explained it. Look, our view is that we as an organisation are unable to tackle this challenge on our own. There's more than 250,000 homes that need to be retrofitted in Glasgow alone, and we've got a geography that is extending into Greater Glasgow. There has to be multiple organisations like us who are building trust in the community. The first answer to your question is the first institutional sort of building block that we need more of is trust. Trusted organisations to broker trust between good suppliers who do good work and customers who are looking to have that work carried out. It's also essential that we have linked up collaborations. So there's a lot of organisations doing retrofit work in Glasgow and further afield. And we need to make sure that those of us who are doing that good work are talking to each other and not trying to create items, not coming along and making the same mistake of this is the only way. If you just do this one thing, double days. If you just do this one thing, become a member of a local home, then all the problems will be solved. That's not the answer. Be aware of people with silver bullet solutions in this space. It's a complex problem, and we're going to need complex solutions, and that means institutionally we need more collaboration. I think it's also important that you have the support from the top. So we're a grassroots organisation, we're working from the bottom to try and build trust and resilience at the grassroots level. We also need top-down support. And that top-down support needs to come from the local government, Scottish Government and Westminster, and large corporates. I think that's the three dimensions of building institutional structures to tackle this. Yeah, probably loads more, but you have more time.
It seems like local sort of primarily focuses on homeowners understandably, but is there any sort of advice or anything that can be offered to people who rent their properties or are in social housing and sort of things of making it, any sort of better heated or something like that, and do you see yourselves engaging with housing associations or city council, like Glasgow City Council at any point?
Yes. Okay. So yes, We are actually a social enterprise, and that means we need to create a business model that stacks up. So we need customers to pay us to do work. So we are necessarily and unapologetically focused on homeowners. For us, homeowners means private homeowners, so to say. For us, private homeowners means both owner-occupiers and private landlords. Anybody who owns a home that's not a social housing owner, but wants to do retrofit, they can use our services. However, it's vital that we are able to increase broader demand for retrofit with everybody in the city. And that's that veto thing I was talking about. It's also about creating the right signals in a variety of channels across the city. So we are in discussion with Glasgow Council and there's many other organisations that are, and they're actively encouraging collaboration, like I mentioned. We're also keen to get out the door and start having broad conversations with all of the organisations that exist in Glasgow, including tenant unions and social housing providers. We actually are in discussion with many social housing providers. There's a lot of them, so it would be quite a job to speak to all of them, but we can start trying to do that. And yeah, I'll repeat what I just said. I think the important thing for us is for everybody to understand the opportunity, not just the opportunity for you as a homeowner, but the opportunity that is more broad, such as economic opportunity. And for people starting to say, actually, I want more of that. We want that in our local community here in this part of Glasgow. Everybody needs to be starting to say that. And that's what we're aiming towards. How we do the time?
We're okay if there's any questions.
A big concern I have is over the way people are
and that's really the factors. So you don't look like it has also to like education. What we do from governance rates rather than what performance that we don't really grasp whatever. And we've got to sell the house. How can we influence the people in what it says? How we can make it why we do that?
Yeah, well, I think your answer is not just about that last bit. So your question is not just about the last bit, or just that last bit first. We are not a think tank or a being organisation. We didn't set ourselves up for that purpose. But we have recognised the importance of engaging with policy institutions, local government, national governments, to have those sorts of conversations, but it's limited in what we're able to do. So a good example would be the Scottish Government has mandated that all of the local authorities in Scotland come up with a local heat and energy efficiency strategy. Glasgow has just released the draft version of their heat efficiency strategy. And so next week we're going to be doing a webinar in partnership with Glasgow Council, one of the authors of that strategy, to raise some of the issues and questions that we and our members have about that. So there's a really active policy engagement piece that we're doing. But I think your question is more broad than that as well. Yeah, can you just repeat the beginning of what you said there? Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really an embodiment of what it looks like and feels like when you have that top down. It's going to be like this, you have to do this, and people go, no. I will comment on that, like having been quite engaged with some of the more recent media around this, I don't think that it's necessarily true that what the message we're seeing in the media is actually what's being said by the government, is being delivered to us with some sort of an agenda via the media. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so our sort of response to that is to say, we need to be having conversations at the local level. it needs to factor in what people know about their local community, what's important to them, and what the benefits and disbenefits, let's be honest, there will be some disbenefits, are going to be. Therefore, what do we think as a community is the right way through this? And to start to do it that way, as much as we can within our own control, and then to send the signal back up as much as we're able to, that that's the way they should be doing it as well. It's back to that thing about bottom down, top up. We need the top down, so we need the bottom up. Yeah, sure. But you know that yeah, my view on it is though that we're a validly Glasgow-focused organisation. Have aspirations to grow and dominate Scotland or the UK or anything. We focus on Glasgow because we think it's important for people to be focused on their own community. So we're part of the Glasgow community and work on that. And we have to have faith that all the other communities everywhere are also going to be doing that. We know that's starting to happen. There's a similar retrofit organisation in Edinburgh, there's one in the northeast of Scotland, and there's going to be more emerging elsewhere in Scotland. So it comes back a little bit to that mantra, which is originally a Scottish idea of thinking globally, acting. Fundamentally what we're about. I think we're out of time. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, please join me in thanking Tom Knuckles. Thank you everyone for being here. We have lots more talks happening this week, so please do check out the program materials again if it's fun. Thank you.